Hello and welcome to the OnFARM podcast. Something a little bit different. Now that we're coming to the end of 2023, we're just kind of reflecting a little bit on what the OnFARM podcast has achieved over the last 4 years and looking ahead to 2024 and what our plans are and how you can get involved and how you can help. We'd love you to have a listen. Please do, if you can, listen right to the end. It's only 15 minutes long. It's essentially a chat about how we can make sure that the OnFARM podcast sticks around and continues to tell some of the best stories of rural Scotland. Hello, I'm Anna.
And this is Dave.
And this is a quick mini-pod about our bigger pod, the OnFARM podcast.
Pod.
It's a pod.
It's a pod. So we got going with the OnFARM podcast in January 2020. It was just in time to help people in rural Scotland continue to communicate during COVID and during lockdown. We really established ourselves, didn't we, Anna, as a lifeline for many across rural Scotland.
And in fact, one of the things we started with was a series for the Royal Highland Show, or the Royal Highland Agricultural Society, looking at stories from the Highland Show, because during that year it couldn't take place physically. So we told many of the stories from its past and also looked ahead to the future. But that's just one example, really. Since we started, we have told countless stories. We featured high-profile guests. And time for a drum roll, I think, because we've now hit over 160 episodes, each of which, in its own unique way, tells the story of food, agriculture and rural matters from Scotland and beyond. And of course, that's our acronym. OnFARM stands for Food, Agriculture and Rural Matters.
Your Royal Highness, welcome. Just, I suppose, before we get started properly, what about the game at the weekend? The Calcutta Cup coming home.
Yes, that was quite an achievement, wasn't it?
I can see you're still buzzing from the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Awards.
That was quite an emotional time, but it's just the journey we're on at the moment, Monty. The friends, family that we've been with made a very special evening. Princess Anne being there was pretty impressive.
I think the most important thing is the framing of our 4 royal charters. This is actually the principles upon which the society operates and is founded. Those charters absolutely underpin everything that this society does to support rural Scotland.
I used to think that there were sheep and there were cows. I then learned that there were, yows and bullocks and heifers and steers and stots and gimmers and, all these kinds of things.
2 weeks ago when I went to my neighbour up the road, and I went up to him and I told him that I was ADHD. He'd never heard of it before. And he interrupted me and he goes, "So is this like the days I go in and your sheep are all over the place and I phone you and I go, how are my sheep out?" And then he says, "Because you forgot to close the gate." And I was like, yes, that's it. That's exactly it. So he's like, okay, I understand it now.
What a debt of gratitude we owe to the people, these cattlemen with the vision to develop and make a breed. But also the stubborn cattleman that kept it going.
If you want a completely off-the-wall fact, I was a Scottish men's over 60-year-old pole vault champion.
That's unbelievable.
Look above my ear. Do you see it?
Yes, I can see it. The pole.
Yes.
Oh my word. Evidence.
Yes.
It's great to hear those voices, Anna. It really makes me think how far we've come, how much we've done. There are so many stories to tell from rural Scotland about enterprise, community, creativity, conservation, history, you name it. It's all been there in the episodes so far. It's there in the mission that OnFARM has to spread that word and spread positivity about Scotland's rural sector and what it delivers.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of summed it up there, really. I think there's no element of rural life that we haven't covered, and it's been uplifting. It's been real. We've shed tears. We've laughed. It's been a kind of emotional journey in a way, but one that we have all, I think, absolutely loved. But of course, it's probably important to highlight that we wouldn't have enjoyed that journey were it not for the host of amazing sponsors that we've worked with. 2 to name check significantly would be Gillespie Macandrew and Bell Ingram, who are long-term sponsors, but also the Moredun Foundation and others. Now, many of those sponsors have got their own important stories to tell, and we have helped them to tell those stories to our audience. But many of them, they also just want to support the podcast because they recognise the kind of greater good that we're trying to deliver of telling all of these brilliant stories and giving rural Scotland a voice.
And we know that we've established ourselves now as a podcast that's regularly listened to by the great and the good of Scottish agriculture. We know there's people in policy circles that listen regularly to the podcast. And also, the numbers speak for themselves. We rank, I still can't believe this, Anna, to be honest, but we rank in the top 2% of podcasts globally, according to podcast aggregator tool Listen Notes. That's quite a feat, given that there are well over 3 million podcasts in existence.
It is, and like you, I can't really believe it. And actually, to me, it's not that matters. To me, it's the stories we tell, and it's the people who listen to us, knowing that there are folk out there in their lambing sheds or their tractors who are genuinely listening to us.
I'm Andrew Moyer. I'm a farmer from Lonskark. I listen to the OnFARM podcasts, usually either on my tractor or on my truck or on my headphones, crop walking, and it's really enjoyable. I know firsthand, because I've been on one, the professionalism that works in behind the scenes, and that they're really easy people to work with and make you at your ease. I thing that sticks out in my mind is the ones I've heard in the past is the one from the Moredun. It was particularly stuck with me on just how something that's on our doorstep has such worldwide connections. That really was good. But anyway, keep up the good work. Going into the 4th year is unbelievable. The time has passed so quickly.
Hello, my name is Lee Innes and I'm the Communications Director at the Moredun Research Institute. We worked with OnFARM during COVID. We were doing a few events to celebrate our centenary. It was 100 years since Moredun was first formed. And we ended up doing a series of 6 fantastic podcasts, which really brought the story of Moredun to life by interviewing various staff members, all the way from the chairman right down to some of our early career scientists.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Melville. I'm an early career researcher at Moredun, and I've worked on several projects relating to anthelmintic resistance and grazing strategies in sheep and cattle.
Lindsay, I don't know if you even remember, you probably meet so many farmers, but you came down to meet with me a couple of years back.
No, I do remember. It was good. We went round just talking to different farmers about how they find nematodirus, the disease, on their farm and what kind of control measures they're putting in place.
Working with OnFARM gave us a completely different way of getting our science across and some of the stories of the people involved at Moredun really well. It gave us a completely new way to promote our science. And we've had a lot of people come and contact us through the podcasts that we would probably never have reached using other methods. We really enjoyed working with the OnFARM team. They made it all very easy. It was also good fun. They've got a great sense of humour. We were all absolutely useless with microphones and technology, and that never stopped them. They managed to sort us all out, even doing some location shoots as well. So very good fun, very easy, and great results.
So we need to get down to brass tacks, Anna.
Yes.
What are we here for? And really, we're here because we're looking for new partners, new sponsors, people that will help us to continue to do this work that A, we really enjoy, and B, that we think really makes an impact, a positive impact to benefit rural Scotland.
Yep.
The time has come to ask the question, would your organisation, would your business benefit from becoming a sponsor or a partner of the OnFARM podcast? Could you have your name emblazoned on the social media audiograms and the pictures and what have you, your logo there alongside ours, for all of the times that we're telling stories about rural charities like the RSABI, good causes, people from across Scotland demonstrating innovation and maybe, responding to difficulties, all of those stories from across rural Scotland. We're offering at this point a real opportunity here to come on board with what we're doing and to help us with this mission.
Yeah, it is a mission, and it's a great one because it's everybody benefits. If you come on board, and we can outline, the ways in which you can do that. If you come on board, you benefit, or your business, the business you own, run, work in, benefits from the exposure it gets. The OnFARM podcast benefits because it gets to remain sustainable. And we hope the industry benefits because we get to keep telling these amazing stories. So there are a number of ways in which you can sponsor us and get your name and your brand out there and attached to the podcast. Primarily rural folk, but those with a broad interest in farming, horses, allied trades, and much more. Our listeners are loyal and they trust what they hear on OnFARM. They've been listening to our voices, and as I said, we're humbled by that, for nearly 4 years now. They trust us and they trust what they hear on OnFARM. So it's a great thing to be associated with. We know from science, actually, it's been proven over and over that the listeners believe podcasts to be credible and authentic, and they often develop an emotional connection to what they're listening to. And we've had that feedback from many, many people. Podcasts generate an amazing opportunity to get information out there. A 40-minute podcast can tell so much more than a short article can say. And they also help with information retention. Do you remember back at school, people used to say, record your notes, record your exam notes and listen back to them as you fall asleep. That's because information retention is really strong. So if you've got a great product or a great message associated with your business, get it onto a podcast because that's how people will remember it. So we'd love to have you involved. By sponsoring the podcast, you get your brand heard amongst our listeners, as we've said, but you also have the chance to get content created specifically for you, about you. So if your business focuses on skills or knowledge or products, the OnFARM podcast and your association with it can get those messages out there and understood by our listeners. And as Dave said earlier on, our listeners are among the most forward-thinking within Scottish rural society. They're the people who've embraced podcasting and audio content. They're the people who are doing things differently. And that's who's listening. So we'd love to have you on board.
Anna, for people who don't know, I guess the way this partnership works is that I do the kind of radio and, making it sound nice bits of the podcast.
And you do that very well, Dave.
But, thank you. That's not what I was driving at. But you and Monty, your business partner at Scene and Heard, you're the marketing specialists. You're the communications specialists.
Yes.
What is it about podcasts that have really turned you onto them and really make you think that, podcasting is the future for telling the stories of rural Scotland? I think it would be useful for people to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, and I suppose if you think about modern marketing, the point is that actually there are certain, more old-fashioned marketing tools that, just sending out a blanket press release, giving somebody a call. Now, they've still got validity sometimes, but the number of people who listen to podcasts overall, including OnFARM, is increasing, and that's not going to stop. And I think also within agriculture, there are many opportunities to listen to a podcast. You might be sitting doing your paperwork, or you might be sitting in a tractor going up and down ploughing a field, or as I've said, in the lambing shed. There are opportunities to listen to podcasts, and people are doing that. And that's why it's a really, really crucial channel, I believe, to get messages out. We'd love you to embrace that too. We'd love your business to embrace it, and we'd love to work with you because podcasting is valuable. But do you know what? It's also blooming good fun, actually. I've had some of the best working days of my life since we started doing this podcast, and I love what we've been able to achieve.
So I guess, what are we calling this? A call to action?
Yes.
The offering of an opportunity?
Indeed.
Anybody who this speaks to, who what Anna and I have been saying speaks to, maybe you've got an organisation that's trying to just reach more people with your messaging. Maybe you've got a tool or a product that you think would really, your messaging would really benefit from speaking to rural Scotland in quite a niche sector way. Maybe you just want to be part of that mission that Anna has described, which is to just celebrate and share positivity about what goes on in rural Scotland. If any of that sounds like it might be something that you want to be part of, get in touch with us. The contact details are at www.sceneandheardpr.co.uk. If you're listening to this as a podcast, it will also be in the show notes that go along with the alongside the audio, the written description. Or Anna, people can tweet us as well, right?
Yeah, we have the same handle on Twitter and Instagram. So whatever your preferred channel, you can get in touch that way as well. And that's at @on_farm UK. We'd love to hear from you. So whatever method is easiest, please get in touch. Even if it's at this stage just with a question, get in touch and ask us, and we're happy to answer.
Yeah, how would it work? What if?
Yes, exactly.
Could we?
Exactly.
Those sorts of questions.
Yes.
Anna, absolutely brilliant talking to you today. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's been fun. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.